Today I want to cover Air Force OSI. Air Force OSI, Office of Special Investigations. These are the special agents for the U.S. Air Force and for the newest branch of military service, U.S. Space Force. So they have a wide range of jurisdiction and purview and authority, and it's a very exciting position, and it has many different avenues for you to gain entry into this federal law enforcement career field. So let's get right to it. So as usual, I put my spreadsheet together here just to give you an overview of what to expect, the type of training, the entry level, the type of positions they have, what you can expect on the military side, civilian side, and on the officer side as well. So let's get right to it. So entry level into OSI, you can join OSI by being an enlisted special agent, officer special agent, and GS employee, 1811 civilian. And I also put down lateral. So if you're coming from another 1811 criminal investigator special agent position and you wish to join Air Force OSI, they do take lateral agents as well. So you have 4 different aspects or opportunities to gain entry into OSI, which covers all the gamut: enlisted, officer, and GS employees. So that's great. So that's an excellent positive pro. Desirable locations, they are excellent. Air Force bases are located throughout the United States and overseas. Air Force OSI has the Special Investigations Academy located at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. That's where most 1811 special agents go to for their basic training, which is the Criminal Investigator Training Program, also known as CITP. After that, they go to the agency specific, the U.S. Air Force OSI add-on, which is a specific training for Air Force OSI agents. So they go to the basic course with all other agencies, and then they branch off after completing the CITP 11-week basic training program. Next I want to talk about is the full performance level for this position. When I talk about FPL, I'm talking about specifically the journeyman level for the case agents, not necessarily managers. But again, OSI has a great opportunity. Their case agents are normally at the E5 and E6, which is the staff sergeant and technical sergeant for the enlisted side. And on the officer side, if they're brand new to the Air Force and they were brand new commissioned officers from OTS, they're second lieutenants through captains, or 01 to 03, or usually case agents. That's where they learn their investigative basic training and basically learning the type of jobs and investigations that OSI conducts during those first 4 years. At the GS level, like I said, they have entry levels from the GS9, GS7, and if you're a lateral, you can come in at a higher grade if you come with investigative experience from another agency. The journeyman level for OSI civilian agents are at the GS13, which is comparable to other 1811 positions. So that's another excellent opportunity if you're a civilian agent looking to transition into OSI. They give you parity with your performance potential as an 1811. Complexity of hire, like most 1811 positions, it could be medium to long. So that's just standard, and you have to expect that. I put that as a con because, again, if you're looking to get into this position, you can't just apply and gain entry. There's a process you have to apply for. There's interviews that are conducted, a very complex background investigation, and depending on the specialty of the background investigation, it could be quite complex. Medical examination, these are just standard things to get into either the military or to apply for a GS position. You can expect a medical examination, drug testing, a very comprehensive background investigation. Actually, all OSI agents have top secret, but depending on their assignment, it could be higher than that, either at the SCI or above, depending on your assignment. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. Polygraph examination, it is not required for OSI unless you're getting into either the polygraph examiner's assignment, or you're doing a CI or CT, counterintelligence or counterterrorism type background. They would require a counterintelligence background polygraph for those types of positions. So again, it may or may not be applicable to the brand new OSI agent, but on subsequent assignments later on in the various specialties, that may be a requirement down the road. Language requirement, I can tell you OSI agents are very highly trained. They receive a lot of extensive training and advanced training. And I know the agents that I've worked with on the West Coast, many of them were sent off to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California to learn secondary language based on their assignments overseas. So that's excellent. If you can pick up some language specialty in OSI, again, that's just an added bonus to both help with your assignment and with the missions that they conduct. OSI, again, is a very outstanding agency. I'm very excited about talking about this assignment. If I had the opportunity early on in my career, this is one of the agencies I would definitely apply for. It's definitely worth it, and they have some excellent, excellent opportunities for both the work and for the mission. The few cons I have about Air Force OSI, they, as an 1811, like most military criminal investigative organizations, they do not have take-home cars. So it's not a deal breaker because, again, the assignments are excellent. The opportunities for promotions are excellent. So, but if you're, again, coming from an 1811 position where you're routinely receiving a take-home vehicle as part of your duty assignment, OSI does not do that unless you're on a specific assignment like protection details or duty agent for a period of time. So those are the times in which normal OSI agents are taking a vehicle home as part of their 24/7 responsibilities. I put down polygraph as a con on here because potentially it could be a detriment for you. I've talked about that in my other videos. So if you want to take a look at that and get more detail of why I put that down as a con, it's more explained in those details. I won't get into it here, but again, a polygraph examination or a negative result can adversely affect you as a law enforcement officer. So, all right, let's talk about some of the specialty units, which I'm very excited about. Air Force OSI has some excellent opportunities. We talked about polygraph examiners, which is a advanced specialty skill. They have C's computer evidence recovery specialists, or SCRS agents, that deal with computer forensics. They have cyber agents deal with computer intrusions in DoD networks and systems. They are assigned. OSI agents are also assigned to the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, working counterterrorism, and that's another excellent opportunity for you to be assigned to a joint terrorist task force environment where you're working with multiple agencies, both on the law enforcement side and the intelligence side. So Air Force OSI on the military side, they have a lot of reserve agents, which a lot of people don't know about. OSI agents leave active duty, become a civilian agent either in Air Force OSI or more likely in another 1811 position or agency. And they continue to serve as Air Force OSI agents in the reserves to continue their military service so they can fulfill their military requirements or possibly retire from the military, since they probably dedicated a significant amount of time for their military service. Why let that go to waste when you can continue to be a special agent in Air Force OSI in the reserves and volunteer for some very exciting missions overseas? And one of those specialties is the protective services mission. So Air Force OSI does protective services for the Department of the Air Force, and that's another specialty that they have. They also work in the counterterrorism, counterintelligence field, mostly with the Department of Defense intelligence services, I should say, or agencies. There's a lot of them. And they also have a fraud mission, more on the procurement and contract side. But those are the type of specialty units that are available for folks interested in branching out and working many different types of investigations and intelligence gathering. Most of the times when agents start with Air Force OSI, they're working base level general crimes, because that's where they learn their investigative, basic training. To learn how to do the reports, how to investigate crimes, testify in court, working with the military and the chain of command, and conducting deterrence, espionage threats, and so forth to protect the base in the U.S. Air Force from outside threats. So that's the basic. For most special agents, is basically at their developmental stage. For GS employees, 1811s is from the GS 7 through GS 13, the first 4 to 5 years. They're learning to be independent developmental agents. Let me talk about veterans preference. Obviously, Air Force OSI is a very excellent veteran-friendly organization. They tend to hire a lot of former active duty military members into their civilian ranks. Career reputation, Air Force OSI is excellent. I don't know a lot of folks that don't like Air Force OSI. Even the folks that I know that came from OSI and transitioned to other agencies like FBI, DEA, DCIS, and so forth, that have an Air Force OSI background, they chose to go to different agencies because of their expanded mission. and for other perks, maybe duty location, being close to home. One of the downsides for Air Force OSI is that they like most military MCIOs, they're expected to have a permanent change of station every 2 to 3 years. And they do a lot of deployments wherever DoD is located. So you could end up in the Middle East for an extended period of time. That takes a toll on their family. So a lot of folks leave Air Force OSI to pursue other agencies where they're more stable. But even though they chose to leave the agency, a lot of the folks that I talk with, they speak with a lot of pride for their time served in Air Force OSI. And it gave them the foundation to be very successful senior agents once they left the military. Air Force OSI is a DoD law enforcement agency. They have DoD investigative authority specific for the Air Force and for the newly formed U.S. Space Force. U.S. Space Force is the newest branch of military service. They don't have a law enforcement investigative branch, so Air Force OSI is conducting that mission at this point while that new military branch is expanding. They both have coverage under the federal law enforcement as primary and secondary. Lateral transition, Air Force OSI training, the CITP Base Academy is the foundation for all other non-Quantico agencies. So they are able to transfer to a lot of different agencies with not a lot of additional training. So the only thing that would be necessary if an OSI agent transfers to another federal law enforcement agency that's not FBI, DEA, or Postal Inspection Service is the agency-specific add-on that it would have to attend. I talked about the different types of compensation. They have military, civilian, on the military side, officer and enlisted. So I have a breakdown here, but just an example of a GS employee who's an 1811 for OSI can expect in the Washington, D.C. area. GS9 with the 25% law enforcement availability pay is around $66,000. At the GS11, $80,000, and GS12, $95,000. And at the GS13, which is the journeyman level for OSI, they can expect about $114,000. And this is not including when they're working protective service operations, where they're authorized overtime, night differential, and weekend pay, and so forth. On the military side, the enlisted agents are, like I said, usually E5s, staff sergeants, or technical sergeants on the E6 level, and on average, they were making around $60,000 per year. So the con on the military side for OSI is that the enlisted agents are the lowest paid of all the special agents. The military officers, on the other hand, are on parity with the GS employees, and you can see from a second lieutenant to a captain, on average, they're making between $66,000 and $96,000 at the captain level with 4 years of service. And that's with their base pay. There's other additional incentives that they receive as officers, but predominantly it's around a $2,000 housing allowance for, I would say, depending on where they're located. In higher cost areas on the East Coast and West Coast, the basic allowance is going to be significantly higher, but I'm just looking on average for the rest of the United States of a $2,000 housing allowance. And you can see that around $96,000 is average for a captain. OSI, once you get to the rank of Major 04 through 06, Lieutenant Colonel and Colonel, which is at the 06 levels, you're commanders or directors of that particular agency. So you're pretty high ranking, and at that point, you're no longer working casework. You're being a military commander and being a det commander or region commander and so forth. There's 8 regions that Air Force OSI operates under, and each of these are commanded by a commissioned officer at this particular grade level: Major, Lieutenant Colonel, and Colonel. Normally, you have to have a previous specialty in order to join OSI as an enlisted agent and have so many years, because as an E5 or E6, you've been in the Air Force for a period of time. It's not an entry-level position where you can get in off the street, unless you're going it through the officer route, straight through officers training, and then you're applying for OSI to be selected in a very, very limited amount of officer positions when you're coming in off the street, as they say. But for enlisted agents, it's a little better because you have some experience in the military, and you're applying to become a special agent with OSI. If you have the security clearance background, if you're a security forces investigator, you can apply for OSI, and you have a very, very good chance of transitioning if you just put in your paperwork and sit by and wait for a position to open up. It's a very rewarding career. And once you fulfill that minimum requirement, You can then either try to become a commissioned officer or transition into a civilian 1811 as a OSI agent.